Running backs in week 5, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a running back to be excited about or a running back to be worried about? That and more coming up next. Coming into week 5, a start that I just kind of have to have in my roster at this point is Cordarrelle Patterson. Now, I understand a little bit of trepidation of this guy being trusted after 4 weeks. He's been fucking awesome, but there is a little bit of concern. He's been averaging about 24 snaps a game. That's not as much usage as you want from a guy that you're going to trust in your starting lineup. However, when he's out there, he's basically being utilized. He's getting an opportunity on almost 2/3 of his snaps. That's an incredible rate. And then when you pair that with the fact that he's got the New York Jets this week, been terrible against running backs. They've given up 5 touchdowns. However, only 2 to wide receivers, and we're talking about Cordarrelle Patterson, a guy that plays the wide receiver role and the running back role. That actually gives him a monumental opportunity against this New York Jets to continue his torrent pace that he's been on so far in 2021. I didn't have him in my lineup in week 4 when he scored 3 touchdowns. Kind of hitting myself over the head for that, but I don't think he gets 3 touchdowns this week, but I think he continues to be a really useful fantasy running back or wide receiver for your lineup. In this case, for this video, he's a running back. He gets about 6 to 7 touches, rushing the ball, and then we're talking about a guy that every single week his targets have gone up. They don't have Russell Gage this week. They're not going to have... They're not going to have Ridley this week. He's not making the trip to London. He's out for personal reasons. This is a great opportunity for Cordarrelle Patterson, once again, against a subpar defense. Been pretty good against wide receivers, but not running backs, for him to once again produce for your team. And then we think about the one thing Atlanta has been doing right is they've been finding unique ways to get this guy the ball in space. He has a nose for big plays. He's got a nose for the end zone. And once again, if there's one thing Atlanta's been doing right, it's the way they've been utilizing Cordarrelle Patterson in 2021. To me, he's finally a guy that I can trust to put in my lineup, which probably means he's going to fall on his face. But I just don't see that happening in week 5 with this great matchup, the lack of weapons that Atlanta has. I just think he comes back once again and has a good week for your team. In a put up or shut up spot, I have Josh Jacobs. This is a guy who was in a good position last week to succeed. You know, you had him coming back reasonably healthy. You had a team and an opponent in the Chargers that had given up big plays to running backs, to every team basically they played at that point. And he failed to produce. He failed to produce in a big way, especially if you trusted him in a PPR format. He fell flat on his face. You're talking about a guy in his 2 games, has 23 rushes for 74 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. That's not what you signed up for. You might have signed up for that for 1 game. You sign up for this guy to be a 20 touch, 20 rush a game. Now, I know there was a little thought he might lose some work to Kenyon Drake, but that's not happening. They're not using Kenyon Drake. In fact, they're just basically not running the ball. This is very strange for a John Gruden offense. However, when you think about how the offensive line's performing, how much they've had to lean on Carr, it just makes sense at this point that, Josh Jacobs is a guy that you're finding harder and harder to trust from week to week. This Bears defense that he's going up against this week is not a vaunted front 7. He should be able to have opportunities to run against this defense. If he can't run against this defense, he's just probably not going to get it done this year. And I was calling James Conner a poor man's Josh Jacobs. maybe Josh Jacobs is a poor man's James Conner. And that's hard to fathom when you think about James Conner, a guy that's been averaging under 4 yards a carry this season. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is going to average under 4 yards a carry, but the opportunities haven't been there. Granted, you were saved in week 1 by touchdowns, but that's what you're going to need from this guy every single week, is for him to fall in the end zone with his efficiency right now and his touches down. I'm worried about him. This is the week where I'm like, put it up or shut up. Shut up and ride the pine. If you can't do it this week against Chicago, it's not the New Orleans front seven. It's not the LA Rams front seven. It's not the Tampa Bay front seven. This is a front seven that if you can't run against this, you're probably not going to get it done against most front sevens. So put up or shut up for Josh Jacobs heading into week 5. In a position to succeed, we've seen a couple down weeks from Damien Harris, and that makes sense considering, the opponents that they've had, considering the defense. He had to go against New Orleans, and they've been a little up and down defensively, but they're still pretty good at stopping the run. They stop Damien Harris in his tracks. They get Tampa Bay. That's probably the best run defense in the NFL. And then you pair that with the fact that Tampa Bay was continuing to move the ball. They had to lean on Mac Jones in a way they hadn't all season, and they had to go away from Damien Harris. Well, we got Houston this week. Houston. Not worried about Houston, guys. I don't think they're getting in a punching match with Houston this week. I don't think New England has to abandon the run because they have to worry about scoring points and passing the ball. I think they get back to the Bill Belichick game plan that he had in week 1, week 2, where they were going to grind the ball out on the ground and give an easy game plan to Mac Jones. That's good news for Damien Harris. You're talking about a Houston team that's seeded 456 yards rushing to RBs at 4.9 yards a carry in 4 weeks. They've given up 3 touchdowns. Now, I will admit, Harris is definitely more of a standard play. In standard play, I think he's like a solid RB2 this week. In PPR, he is a guy that you can think about in the flex spot. I understand you might have a guy that you think has better upside. Maybe it's a wide receiver. Maybe it's a pass catching back. Maybe you just think Brandon Bolden on the same team has a great opportunity to have a better floor and a decent ceiling. I don't know. But I think Damien Harris has a great opportunity against this defense. Who else are they going to have run the ball? And I know Bill Belichick's going to want to run the ball this week. You don't have to worry about Cam Newton in 2021 stealing the touchdowns in the red zone. You might have to worry about Jonnu Smith catching, his four catches for 17 yards and a TD. But it's not like the tight ends have been super efficient in the red zone either. I really like Damien Harris this week. I think he has a great opportunity to get a touchdown. He's got a great opportunity to mass yards on the ground. I can see him going over the century mark and rushing. I could totally see 120 yards rushing and a touchdown in his future. And you're pretty happy that he's in your lineup in week 5. This guy, man, I'm honestly disappointed that he's on this list, and it's because I've had a lot of hate for him over the year. I think he's one of the most overrated players. I think that he's one of the most inefficient players at the position since he's been in the league, and that's Leonard Fournette. But the fact is he's the best option on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the position right now. Rojo is in the perma doghouse. Leonard Fournette coming off a 23-touch game where he was actually quite good in it, going against a Miami defense that's ceding 547 yards, rushing at 4.3 yards a carry. They've given up 5 rushing touchdowns. I like Leonard Fournette this week. I think he in PPR is a little bit better probably because we don't know what the situation is with Giovanni Bernard yet. We don't know if he's coming back. And frankly, we've only seen Giovanni Bernard really be a factor once in the one game they were getting blown out, and he got injured in that game. Leonard Fournette's been the guy they've been using in the passing attack. Got a great matchup this week against Miami. I think he gets the touches. I think he gets an opportunity. And at the very least, you're not disappointed in what he gives you. Tampa Bay has got to be a team that is on a mission after what they did in week 4 against New England. That offense didn't put up anything compared to what expectations were going to be. It was a beyond subpar game for Tom Brady. And it was a Leonard Fournette game. I understand that. And that if this is going to be a Tom Brady game, is it going to be a Leonard Fournette game? That's the risk. That is the number one risk, is that they haven't had balance. They haven't been running the ball, but I think they try to bring a little bit more balance to that. They maybe try going back to the 35-40% rushing mark, which I don't think they've been at much of the season. And they get Leonard Fournette a little bit more involved, and he's going to have success this week. So, to me, he's a great start. Only 48.9% started in ESPN leagues this week. I understand that, but I could see that number going up because it honestly is a juicy fucking matchup for Fournette. And we're at the point now where I don't think you have to worry about Jones at all. Like, he's going to get a handful of touches at best, and they just don't trust the guy. All they want to do is give Fournette a blow here and there, and that's what Rojo's there for. Not your week, Miles Sanders. Welcome to the Pine. Like, dude did not show up last week. He didn't show up in week 3. This is honestly not much to do with him. More to do with Kenneth Gainwell. More to do with Sirianni. And honestly, it blows my mind that he's being started in 58.2% of ESPN leagues. I don't know how 58% of league managers can have trust in this guy to have him in their starting lineup. To me, he is a very weak flex. To me, he is about as desperate of a play as you can get at the position. To me, there's more upside with a guy in Kenneth Gainwell, who probably it's possibly still out on the waiver wire for you to pick up. Miles Sanders has been terrible. Think about this guy. And then he's got the Carolina Panthers up next. They've only given up one touchdown on the ground through 4 weeks. Opponents haven't been impressive till week 4. But I just don't think you can trust Miles Sanders in your roster. And, you think about the fact that they're not calling running plays. Well, they are calling running plays, but they're mostly RPOs. They're calling a lot of RPOs in Philadelphia. And I'm watching Hurst run this RPO, and I'm watching him watch the linebacker, and I'm watching him run the ball, not Sanders. I'm watching him pass the ball. I'm not watching him hand the ball off to Sanders. And I'm seeing very few, obviously, calls being made specifically to just hand the damn ball off to Miles Sanders. He's got 9 rushes over the last 2 weeks. And you trust this guy to be in your roster? To me, you cannot have this guy in your roster until you see Nick Sirianni commit to the run, and not just to the run, but commit to Miles Sanders. We thought Doug Peterson was bad for Miles Sanders. Jesus Christ. Nick Sirianni, you're terrible for Miles Sanders. They're obviously in love with Kenneth Gainwell. They handpicked Kenneth Gainwell. He's been pretty good. He hasn't been as good as Sanders, but good enough for them to like Gainwell. It seems like a little bit more than Sanders. I understand Sanders is out there more. He is getting more snaps. He is getting a few more targets. He is getting a few more rushes. But that Kenneth Gainwell over his shoulder thing ain't going away. Nick Sirianni's not going away. And until we see him commit to Miles Sanders, I don't understand how you can trust him being in your lineup. Beware Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Beware this guy. I'm sorry, guys. I know he's coming off back-to-back 100-yard games. 72.7% of managers are starting him in ESPN leagues versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, I said in week 3, beware Gibson and Antonio Gibson had his day saved by a 73-yard screen pass for a touchdown. If it wasn't for that, he would have fallen on his face, broken his teeth out. It just would have been ugly. It would have been ugly. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been great the last 2 weeks. I don't see the game script for him this week. I think Buffalo's going to be moving that ball against this subpar Kansas City defense. They are going to go back into more of a pass-happy role, and you're going to see more of the week 1, week 2 version of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as opposed to the week 3, week 4 version of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He worries me a lot. I understand if you don't have anybody you think is better than him, but this is a beware situation. Don't expect another 100 yards rushing from him. I'm not expecting a touchdown from him, and I'm not expecting a ton of usage in the passing game from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This is a big red alert to me. When you talk about this defense, it is a legitimate defense that is going to slow down this Kansas City offense enough to throw off the running game. Worried about him? I wouldn't want him in my lineup, but I also understand if maybe you don't have anything better as compared to what kind of opportunity he will get. But for me, that 100-yard rushing streak ends at 2 games. If you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. I love interacting with you guys. I will be joining 1080 The Fan on Sunday morning with Mike Lynch and Rashad Taylor for the Fantasy Scramble. We answer your start-sit questions with a with the half hour up to kickoff. So at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, you can send in your texts, your start-sit questions to 503-250-1080. Again, 503-250-1080. We'll answer them as a panel. You can get that last-minute advice live on air here in Portland, and you can listen to it on the Odyssey app, and I'll have a link down below that you can click on to make sure that you can listen live there as well. Thank you again for watching. Make sure that you catch my Week 5 wide receivers start sits as well.